Okay, everybody, here we go. We all waited a week. It was tough for everybody, but here we go with the new One Piece chapter. We're gonna find out Vegapunk's message to the entire world. Right? 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 I'm gonna keep going. Right? Okay, I'm starting to hit the wall now. All right. Yeah, we don't find out what the message is this week. But, you know, for reasons that actually make a lot of sense, Oda does kind of do the thing that I thought he was going to, where we see the reaction of a bunch of people all over the world. It's not the entire chapter, but it's a good chunk of it. But the message hasn't even begun yet, for reasons that will make a lot of sense. So we'll see where we get when we get to there. But this will be One Piece chapter 1109 review, titled Termination. You know, considering the pacifistas are basically Terminators, I was kind of waiting for a chapter title like this, you know, like you are terminated, you know, something like that. Another way to read it is obstruction. We have a brand new cover story. That's right, cover story number 26. It doesn't actually have a title yet. We don't know what this is actually going to be called. It's involving Wano, because Wano is the previous arc. Typically, the cover stories will tackle things from the previous story arc, so this is going to be about Wano. I checked, and usually in between cover stories, it's about 30 chapters or so. It was 30 chapters since the Germa story ended, and then it was kind of like 30 chapters between Beiji's family one and then the Germa, so it's about like 25 to 30 chapters. We see Onigashima, the island. Remember, it was picked up by Kaido's magical dragon cloud powers, and it was dropped like right outside of the flower capital, and now we see it at the bottom of Wano. So remember, Wano, like the actual old country of Wano, is on sea level, and then they erected those giant earthen walls that are pretty watertight, I would assume, because all the rainwater from the centuries built up, and then Wano, the citizens, had to continuously build up their city on the top of Mount Fuji in order to, like, not live underwater. So the old country of Wano, which is where the road poneglyph was, and apparently even below this is where Pluton is sleeping, is currently where Onigashima is. I guess maybe Momonosuke, using his cloud powers and the efforts of the samurai and Yamato and everybody, you know, picked up Onigashima and they pushed it somewhere else. They just threw it into the ocean, I guess. Like, all right, we don't want this thing around anymore. Honestly, I think it was a wasted opportunity. I thought they were going to turn the thing into an amusement park, honestly. Think about it. It's prime real estate. You have Onigashima, the former base of operations for one of the evil emperors, Kaido. Ooh. And it's right there outside of the flower capital. You could have added some water slides to the horns. You could have turned the bathhouse into a whole water park situation. You know, the live stage could have been redone. You could have had, like, shops and things. You could have revitalized the Wano economy, is what I'm saying. And instead, you just decide to pick the damn thing up and, like, we don't want this around anymore, and just chuck it into the water and sinks to the bottom of the ocean. It's like, okay, actually, we might see it again, because eventually those walls are going to come down around Wano, and all of the water is going to empty out, and we're going to see the old country probably eventually. So we'll probably see Onigashima again. The sword is still there. That giant katana that was like in the front, like Kaido's front yard, basically, his lawn decoration. We see that there too. Yeah. So that's where Onigashima's at. We don't know exactly what the focus of this cover story will be, other than the fact it takes place in Wano. But we'll see Momonosuke and the Scabbards and Yamato. We'll see everybody there again and see where it takes us. Alright, so the chapter starts right where we left off, with Vegapunk's pre-recorded message, his kill switch message, as it were. We see the room in the labo phase. We don't exactly know where it is in the labo phase, but it's this, like, Vegapunk's, like, panic room, like his bunker. We see the monitor playing the pre-recorded message, and we see, like, the EKG, like the heart rate monitor. So Vegapunk most likely had some kind of, like, biometric, like, sensor on him, so when he was stabbed by Kizaru in the last chapter, we saw it go, like, beep, beep, and then dee, you know, and we see it right there, you know, flatlining. So I'm assuming the Stella is dead, and the message is beginning. So the way that Vegapunk kind of began the message was like, hey everybody, I'm Vegapunk, the foremost scientist. Anyway, let me tell you all about the secret of the world we live in. Ooh, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? And that's where we left off. Now, Shaka walks in, because this is pre-recorded, so all the satellites are still around. Shaka walks into frame and is like, Stella, maybe we shouldn't just start with the message, you know? Because telecommunications equipment, while it does exist in the One Piece world, they have Den Mushi, it's not the same thing like in our world, you know, with our phones and everything like that, where we could receive information kind of like, we're all at the ready for it, right? That's why whenever there's like national weather emergencies or something like that, like our phones like immediately like beep, like you get a message like that, right? So in the One Piece world, most people have Den Mushis, but they're not going to be at the ready to receive this message. So the Shaka's basically saying maybe you shouldn't just start with the message. Like, hello everybody, I'm Vegapunk. Okay, so there was this guy named Joy Boy. Like, if you just get right into it, people are going to be all over the world, like probably like hanging out and just being like, you know, listening to their Den Mushi or whatever, or maybe not even having it turned on. Maybe they'll outside gardening or something. And it's like, oh my god, there's a message from Vegapunk. What? There's a message from Vegapunk. Turn the Den Mushi on. What's going on? And that was the conclusion of the history of the world. Bye, everyone. They're gonna miss the message. You have to kind of give people time to like turn on the Den Mushis and everything like that. So in the movie film Red, we saw the live streaming Den Mushi, the new variety that existed, made by the SSG that Uta used to like broadcast her songs to the entire world. And people also will bring up like, what about the broadcast at Marineford? You know, they had video at Sabaody watching the war. And the way I compare that is basically like, think about the way that like TVs were like live broadcasted back in like the 60s or the 70s. They had those big television cameras and they like the nightly news and everything like that, versus modern technology like webcams and like the cameras on our phones, and we could just like push a button and live stream to the whole world like that. That's probably the difference. Also at Marineford, all of the journalists and everybody were gathered at Sabaody to watch the war. It was almost like it was a direct connection from Marineford with the visual Den Mushis closed circuit to Sabaody to watch it on the big screen, and then all of the journalists had to like write stuff down and report to their various like their networks and everything. That wouldn't have been necessary if it was live streamed all over the world simultaneously, you know? So technology has kind of improved. Either way, Shaka recommends we should probably give it some time. But Vegapunk is also like, well, what if it's intercepted? You know, because he's really concerned. I don't want the message to be intercepted or somebody to grab it and censor it, so we can't wait that long. And so they're like, okay, well, what if we use the Navy's communication network? So this is something that's very important to find out about this, because a lot of people are like, well, shouldn't the government have a way to cut all of the feed or something like that? This is Vegapunk. He's the most brilliant scientist in the entire world. When he hacks into a communication and network, he does it right, okay? So it's like, yeah, we could use the Navy's comms, which has to be connected all over the world because it's the Navy. We'll just use that, and then we'll like force all of the Den Mushis on at the same time, and you can't turn them off. And we even see the Marines on the ship trying to turn off their Den Mushis, and it's just not responding. Now, Den Mushis, when they're giving this message, they're living beings. They are snails, okay? They're actual snails that utilize this psychic network, and humans are just kind of taking advantage of that psychic network, attaching various tools and like bits and bobs on top of the snails to make communication easier. But it's that psychic network that's the thing that's really doing it. So there is a way to end the broadcast, and that would be to kill the Den Mushi. So I think this is going to be a dark day for Den Mushi, because I think if this message keeps going, the government and the Marines are going to start giving out messages to all the people of the world like, you need to kill your Den Mushi now. But also, these things are expensive, as we're going to find out in a bit. We're going to be at the East Blue. We're going to see Whoop Slap, and he's going to mention how Den Mushis, especially the visual transmission of Den Mushis, are not cheap. So I don't think people, and also people view them as pets. So they're basically the pets of the One Piece world. So I don't think like the government is going to like, you need to kill your Den Mushis, end the broadcast immediately. Like, not old Slimy. Not old Slimy. He's my favorite Den Mushi. He's my pet. I wonder how long Den Mushis live in the wild. I don't know how long snails live. I never actually learned. That's not in the memory banks anywhere like that. But, you know, whatever. They're basically pets, so I don't think people are going to be okay with just slaughtering them en masse to end the transmission, right? We'll make it possible anyone with a transponder snail can receive our initial voice message, but they'll need a while to prepare the visual one. So I guess the audio broadcast, this is more of a podcast, if anything, but it'll take time for the visual ones to broadcast, so we should give everybody 1 hour. That's what Shaka recommends. But then the Stella is like, whoa, 1 hour? That is way too long. The government might figure out some way to hijack the signal, or, you know, cut it, or censor it, or something like that. How about we do 10 minutes? So that's basically what this chapter is. The whole world is receiving this message. You have 10 minutes to wake up, because parts of the world are, you know, it's like dark, it's nighttime in some parts of the world of One Piece, so people are asleep. So it's like you have 10 minutes to get up, gather your visual Denden Mushi if you have one, set up the screen, and then begin to watch the message, okay? And you should be okay. Ivankov mentions later in the chapter that 10 minutes of leeway isn't really a lot of time for the government to, like, pull the signal, especially since Vegapunk is hijacking it, right? So, yeah. So while this message is going on, though, everybody on Egghead, we still see what's happening. We see the Marines, we see Luffy holding Kizaru and grappling Saturn. Saturn's there, and he's just like, what do you intend to say, Vegapunk? He's not saying it, he's thinking it. We see Usopp and Nami, they're kind of confused of, like, where is this message coming from? Because they're hearing it, I think, over their comm systems, right? We see some of the Marines still fighting the Giants. There are people who won't be too pleased when we start this broadcast, and they may terminate it before we finish. Let's set it to 10 minutes. And so now we cut over to Marijois, all right, into the Room of Authority in Castle Pangaea, where Saturn is telepathically communicating with the rest of the Gorosei. So that's another ability he has, which you would assume, considering they're the Gorosei and they're all kind of, maybe not all immortal, but they're all very old and they have these mythical powers and they're all, like, recruited by Eam. You would imagine they would have some kind of shared telepathic link or bond to one another, and we're going to see that even more so by the end of the chapter. But they're basically like, you know, Saturn, has Vegapunk been dealt with? And he's like, ah, yes, Kizaru delivered the finishing blow. He should be dead. And so the other Gorosei are like, all right, so that means he set up like a dead man switch, like a kill switch, so that when he died, this broadcast would come out. Oh my god, there's no way of knowing what this guy's gonna say. We gotta find the source of this broadcast, and then we have Jupiter, who's like, well, it's probably in the lab O phase. That's probably where the message is being broadcasted from, the highest point of Egghead. You know, got a lot of transmission clearance and everything like that, but now it's protected by the barrier. And Kizaru can get through the barrier, but he's all wrapped up in fighting Luffy right now, right? So this is kind of a comedy routine, what's going on with the screen in the meantime. Because Vegapunk, you'd think last chapter it was kind of something he prepared. Like he's sitting down and like, greetings world, I am dead. And now I will tell you the history of everything. But it really seems like Vegapunk didn't plan this. He's like, hey Shaka, Pythagoras, I'm gonna go record a message in case I die. That cool? All right. Hey everybody, I'm Vegapunk. And then Shaka's like, wait, hold on. You should probably wait 10 minutes. And then Pythagoras pops in and just like, hey, you want some coffee? So it's like a random, like intermission. Like, the broadcast will begin in 9 minutes and 30 seconds, but let's just hang out in the meantime, right? And, you know, I was thinking about, like, okay, what is something similar that could happen in our world about all this, right? And, like, who is somebody in our world that could just send a message? Bill Nye. Bill Nye the science guy. He's rather beloved. Okay. So imagine you're going about your normal day. You're hanging out making YouTube videos. I don't know, that's my normal day. I don't know about yours. Or you're at school, or you're at work, or you're working out at the gym, or you're doing whatever. And then all of a sudden, all of our phones at once just ping, 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 and then it's just Bill Nye shows up. It's just, you can't control anything, you can't turn it off, like Bill Nye's face just appears on your phone all over the world at once, all over the TVs and everything. It's just like, hello world, I'm Bill Nye the science guy. Bill Nye the science guy is like, I am here to tell you about the true secret of the world that we live in. And everybody's like, whoa, now that would be more, like, we're all more equipped for that. Like, we could all pull out our phones and be like, okay, Bill Nye, go. And obviously it'll be recorded and live streamed and up on YouTube by the end of the broadcast, right? You know, Bill Nye's broadcast on the fate of the world or something like that. But in this world, no, we actually have to take some time. So we're cutting all over the One Piece world here. First we go to Dressrosa, where there's like, oh, you hear about Dr. Vegapunk? He's gonna do this broadcast. All right, well, we need to bring out the visual Den Den Mushi. So they pull out the Den Den Mushi. It's this big model, and he's really sleepy. He's like, wake up, we need you. All right, they're pulling up the screen. We see Rebecca. We see Kiros. I think Tank is there in the background. He was like the captain of the guard at Dressrosa. We see Leo there, and it's actually really cool. Side note, Rebecca is training with Kiros. I really like this scene because it was kind of debatable whether or not Rebecca was going to keep up with her swordsmanship. Because remember, the whole reason, like, she didn't want to be a gladiator, right? Like, she was kind of forced into that position because Doflamingo took over the country, and the whole nation hated her because, you know, she was the descendant of King Riku. So I was kind of debating whether or not Rebecca was going to continue being a warrior, or if she was just going to go and just, like, find something else to do, right? But here we see her training with her dad, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that scene. Leo is there, and he's like, oh, hey, so this broadcast is going to be about Vegapunk? Isn't that the smart guy that Luffy is kidnapping right now? And Rebecca is like, hey, Leo, don't trust, the Tontatas are very trusting, and so they'll believe whatever they hear. So it's like, oh, Luffy Land kidnapped the greatest scientist in the world? Okay, you know, and Rebecca's like, hey, don't believe everything you say about Lucy. You know, they're still calling him Lucy or Lucy because of the, you know, the Cordia Coliseum moment and everything like that. But they got the video ready to go, and Kiros is watching the broadcast, and he sees Pythagoras there, and just like, is that Vegapunk? Because I guess most of the world doesn't really know what he looks like. So they're like, Pythagoras is on screen, and they're like, is that Vegapunk? Like, okay, I mean, he technically is, but yeah. We see Fuchsia Village in the east, where they only have the regular model Den Den Mushi. They only have, like, the audio version. Apparently, the video versions are much bigger, and they're more expensive. And remember, they're living things, so you have to feed them. So Whoop Slap even brings up, like, who's gonna pay for that? Do you want to pay for a giant snail in the middle of town that we'll barely use? You know, audio is just fine. Back in my day, we didn't have fancy live streaming snails. We just had normal radio snails, and things were good back then. No damn pirates or Goldie Rogers or Roxy Zebex, you know, back in my day. that's Whoop Slap. So yeah, like in areas of the world that are more rural, and, you know, Fuchsia Village is just a tiny little windmill / fishing village, you know, so they don't really have, like, a lot of money to work with, so they're just going to use the audio-only version. Water 7, it's actually at nighttime, so it's like the opposite side of the world. That's actually really cool that Oda did that, because, like, if we take this map of the world, if we take this One Piece globe here, so this is the Paradise side, and there's Marie-Joie. And then we're going, and like Wano is like, so we're probably like right around here, Egghead right now. So Water 7 would be clear on like the other side of the island. Like Water 7's like right here on the opposite side of the world, you know, something like that. So it would be nighttime there. It's probably like, by that logic, I guess it would be early morning in Fuchsia. Yeah, so we see Iceberg. Pretty cool to see him again. Iceberg's waking up and he hears the message, like, oh, Vegapunk's message. And Iceberg is like, oh, yes, Alice, prepare the screen to broadcast. So I think her name is, there's a little note here that her name is actually spelled or pronounced Alice, A-L-I-C-H-E, but it's Alice, so I'm probably just going to call her Alice. So after the whole situation with Cypher Pole 9 and Khalifa, who was the secretary for not Vegapunk, for Iceberg back at Water 7, he needed a new assistant, and there was actually part of a cover page where he was like going in line and interviewing prospective new assistants, and it's a young girl named Alice who is just like a genius, okay? And so she's managing all of Iceberg's, like, you know, secretarial work like perfectly. We also see Tyrannosaurus, the mouse, on top of Alice's head, and so Iceberg wakes up, he's like, what? There's a message from Vegapunk? Yeah, Alice, prepare the screens. And she's like, ah, yes, don't worry, Iceberg-san. Everything is, Mr. President, everything is going on. There's a screening room next door, so you can go watch the message. We're preparing screens at each of the docks of Water 7, and they should be ready momentarily. You know, we shall be good in 10 minutes. Is there anything else? So Alice is like on point with this. She's already organized everything in the town. She's like, it's early in the morning, it's nighttime, but I've still sent a message out to everybody everybody in Water 7 to wake up and go to the nearest dock to receive the message from Vegapunk. So she is on this, all right? Nice to see Iceberg again. He's a cool guy. I hope he doesn't die in One Piece. He's a nice guy. So there's that. We cut to Morgan's headquarters, the World Economic Journal that's floating in the sky, the giant little teapot with the balloon, and Morgan's is mentioning, well, it's through the Navy signal, so it's unencrypted, so we don't have to worry about. Usually anything over a Marine signal, you have to have a password to gain access to it. That is not the case with this. So they could just, like, access the information, right? Vivi is there, like, where's Luffy and the others? Like, she's, like, looking for Luffy in the broadcast, and Morgan's is like, oh, you idiot, you know, it's clearly a pre-recorded message. There's a clock in the background. It's not the same time at Egghead. So they're piecing this together. This was all pre-recorded. Wapple's there, still looking depressed. He's like, I don't know. What am I gonna do with my life now? I don't even... you know, what am I gonna do with all the money that I don't have now? Like, Wapple's pretty much gonna lose everything all over again. He's already been there once. He was in poverty, and then he built himself back up, but now he's seen Eam. He's not gonna be able to go back to the Black Drum Kingdom anymore. He probably lost his wife. So, yeah, he's not feeling too hot right now, right? And also, Morgan's brings up, like, you know, the island itself is probably covered in flames and a buster call right now, so this is definitely a pre-recorded thing here. We see the West Blue, we see the North, we see the South. These are just like random locations, nowhere like in particular. The people of the world are kind of like really like excited and gathering, like what is Vegapunk going to be announcing? Is it some new invention? What has he cooked up this time, right? There's a guy in the North Blue that says he is the man that lit up the entire world. So the technology in One Piece is very anachronistic at times because it's like a piratey kind of setting, but there's also electricity and like electric lights and stuff like that, like light bulbs and things. And so that's all because of Vegapunk. You know, people brought up like in the One Piece live action series, you see Party's Bar at Fuchsia and it has like an electric sign. And, you know, if you don't know all about One Piece, you're going to be watching that and being like, how is there an electric sign at this bar in the middle of this village in the middle of nowhere? It's like, well, there's actually an explanation for that in story. So, and that would be Vegapunk, right? But that doesn't happen until a lot later. So those are the reactions from the world. Everybody is taking time to build up. There's not as many as I thought there was going to be. We do see one more. We see Kamabaka. We see Ivankov and the commanders of the Revolutionary Army gathering everybody together. They have a screen ready to go. It has little hearts on it. And Ivankov mentions that the probability of interference in less than 10 minutes is probably pretty low. So this message is going to air pretty much no matter what. It's going to get out there, right? And so all the commanders are there ready to listen to it. Dragon is there, and he remembers what Shaka said at the beginning of the arc, like, I think I'm gonna die soon, Dragon. And he's like, okay, this must be in a response to that. We're cutting back to Egghead now, where we see Luffy fighting Kizaru and Saturn. So he has Kizaru and Saturn. Kizaru charges up his eye lasers, which he has apparently now. Well, I mean, he always did, but it was cool. Eye lasers, eye beams, psh, fires that at Luffy. Luffy dodges it effortlessly, and he's like, all right, looks like you in particular are immune to damage, so I got an idea. Gamu Gamu no Dawn Symbol! And he just takes Kizaru and Saturn and just smashes them together and then crushes them like paper. And then they literally come out like cartoon characters, like Bugs Bunny just like, you know, closed a book on Daffy Duck or something, and he's like, you know, like, so they come out like pieces of paper that have little stars whirling around their head, and then Luffy grabs them, twirls them like pizzas, and then throws them away like frisbees. Yes. You know, all the different ways that you could take down Saturn, crushing him into a piece of paper and then throwing him away like a frisbee. I mean, it was on the list. I mean, I have a list, okay? It was right here. Turn him into a paper and throw him like a frisbee. Yeah, there you go. So that didn't work. At least we're learning today, right? Okay, cool, cool. So Kizaru gets sent flying by this. He crashes into a battleship, and you kind of see him like, oh, damn it. So he's maybe not knocked out, but he's down for right now. Saturn, on the other hand, though, as Luffy chucks him, he just kind of like like a freaking boomerang just comes right back, and then Luffy's like, oh, come on! What do I gotta do to you? You know, you're just immune to all this types of damage. What do I have to do to keep you down? So Saturn has taken kind of a lot of damage at this point, and he seems to just keep coming back like it's not a big deal. So his stamina might be connected to the other Gorosei. Like, all the Gorosei share stamina. So as long as the others are alive and they're safe and not fighting, one of them essentially has an infinite supply of stamina. Or it's connected directly to Eam, which would be the worst case scenario. But Kizaru's down for right now, and Saturn, while attacking Luffy, he's like spinning and like firing his legs, and Luffy's like dodging them. He's still communicating telepathically with his brothers, I guess, the other Gorosei. And he's like, there's no time, Saturn. We cannot allow Vegapunk to speak. And he's like, this last scene of the chapter, right? Big double page spread where Saturn is just like, very well, I understand. I'll perform the summoning at once. And all the other Gorosei are like, yes, very well then. And so last scene of the chapter, Luffy is kind of away from him for a little bit. Luffy was kind of dodging the attack, so he's not holding on to him anymore. Saturn lands on the ground, and then we see 4 magic circles and 4 giant black pillars of smoke gurgle out of these summoning circles, and the lightning. And Sanji even mentions, that's just like what happened when the first spider geezer appeared. And then Luffy's eyes pop out of his head. He's like, what's going on here? Huh? And then that's the end of the chapter. Break next week. We just see these 4 summoning circles with smoke billowing out, and Saturn's in the middle summoning. I'm sure it was already very apparent, but allow me to just clarify for people that can't follow along. Saturn is summoning the 4 Yawn Cooks. You might not know about them. I just talked about this in a video I made last night. The SBS that came out for Volume 108. Maybe you're not aware of it yet. But there are the 4 greatest cooks in the entire world. And one of them is on the island right now, so he summoned him. But then the other 3, we have one that specializes in winter cuisine, but we also have summer and spring and fall. I am not making any of this up. And it's very clear that Saturn, when he's bringing in the big guns, he would summon the 4 greatest cooks. I mean, Sanji's right there. So there's no way that, you know, okay, in order to defeat Blackleg Sanji, the chef of the Straw Hat crew, I must summon my 4 chefs. Come, Yawn Cooks, and cook our way to victory. We will baste and broil our way to victory. But no, of course, he's summoning the other 4 Gorosei, the other 4 stars, the Elder Stars. So that is a twist I did not expect, but it also makes sense. Like, if we're going to see the Gorosei get involved in this story and actually do things, you know, the Straw Hats aren't going to be going to Marijois, so we got to have them go to the Straw Hats, right? So this happened quick. Like, the Gorosei just have the ability of telepathy, and they can teleport. It seems like they have to be, at least one of them has to be at the location to teleport. They can't just freely teleport anywhere they want in the world, because Saturn had to go himself. But maybe Saturn didn't want to make a big spectacle, but it seems to be like one of them is capable of summoning the others to their location, all right? It's also insane to me that he's summoning all 5 of them. Like, all 5 are going to be assembled there at once. Because you'd think, like, because, like, oh, we don't have time for this. We need to end this transmission as quick as possible. The only way to do that is to find where it's being broadcasted and terminate it manually, right? So the crazy thing is that all 5 of them need to be there for that. That's how serious they take this. It could have been a situation of just like Top Man could have stood up and is like, I will go. Or Marcus could have stood up and is like, I will go. You know, you feel like one of the Gorosei to handle Luffy, the sun god, and then another Gorosei with all these crazy mythical bullshit powers goes off to the Labo phase. You think 1 or 2 more would have been sufficient, but no, all of them are coming. All of them are assembling at once. And it's like, that's how much of a threat this is. So, okay, logical question. Can Luffy clone himself in Gear 5th? He's capable of a lot of crazy shit. I don't think he can do that, but if he could, if he could clone himself, yeah, you know, maybe he could. I don't know. I don't think Luffy can clone himself, no. So he's going to have his hands full here, even if it's like, okay, even if Kizaru is taken out of commission for right now, if he's knocked out, you have Luffy there fighting Saturn, and you have Sanji there you know, actually, Sanji's carrying Vegapunk away, his body. He's not even right next to Luffy right now, right? So he's running away. He's just witnessing what's happening. We do see a scene with the giants arriving at the ship. So Atlas and Frankie and Kuma and Bonnie have made it to the evac point, as it were. But this is going to be tough because now you have, like, I know the Giants are there too. You got Dory and Bragi and the Giant Warrior Pirates, and the Pacifistas are still on their side and everything. But, you know, 4 more Gorosei, 4 more Elder Stars, that's going to definitely tip the scales more for the government side, like, absolutely at that point. But we're going to see all of their monster forms. That's probably going to be cool. They're probably going to arrive in their monster forms, or at least their hybrid forms. So maybe some will be in their hybrid, maybe some will be in their, like, maybe Marcus will be in his full, like, bird form or whatever. We'll just wait to see what they're all going to look like. But break next week, so we have to wait 2 weeks for that. And I don't know, man, because it's like, are we going to get the Gorosei's appearance, like all of them, plus Vegapunk's message in the next chapter? That'll be chapter 1110. 1110. That's going to be insane. It's going to be intense. I don't know if we're just going to get one or the other or what, you know, Oda's planned for this, but holy crap, this chapter was intense. Even if it was just a lot of buildup without the message actually being revealed, still pretty cool, all right? Well, anyway, that was the chapter. This is a thing now where it's like, I don't know what they're going to do here unless there's something else that happens that, like, is like, oh, by the way, now the Grand Fleet shows up. It's like, I don't know how they're going to get out of this. I mean, they can escape, but, like, all of the Gorosei at once. We know Marcus Mars is some kind of bird thing, so he could probably fly up to the Labo phase, and that the lasers are probably not going to kill him. So he could do that. I mean, like, I don't know what's going to happen next. This is a twist that I did not expect coming. Like, we were going to get the other Gorosei, but not all of them at once, and certainly not, like, right here, right now. This is crazy. But anyway, I'm just going to go on and on about that, so I'll be making videos to, like, expand on this and everything. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking, signing out. Make sure to prepare your Den Den Mushi. Oh, this is the wrong one. Sorry. This Den Den Mushi. There we go. I had to borrow Laws. Yeah, he was a cool sport about it. I didn't ask him.